Welcome to Podcast Marketing Secrets, the place for entrepreneurs, coaches, and CEOs who are looking to grow their business with a podcast, become a key person of influence in their industry, and get their ideal clients to come to them, also known as attraction marketing. I'm your host, Al Morent, and my guest today is Josef Schinwald. Josef is the CEO of Guest Experts on Air. As a visibility strategist, his diverse experiences in the media landscape, ranging from associate publisher to vice president of a multinational newspaper throughout Latin America, and a professor in paradigmatic business designs at 3 universities, have equipped Josef with in-depth business knowledge. This journey, coupled with his over 50 TV show appearances, has given Josef a rich understanding of the ever-evolving media dynamics. Welcome to the show, Josef.
Well, Mr. El Moretin, I think the best thing for us was that we have been like the early members of Stamponet, like 2006, when the internet business started, the internet marketing started. You've been there, I've been there. That I just learned now. It's fantastic, you know. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
You're welcome, and thank you for coming on. And for those that didn't understand what we just talked about, that we're talking about the early ages of digital marketing, way back in 2006. He was a big part, Josef was a big part of that, and I was a small part of that, and but we have a storied background, and we've seen it evolve, so through the years, right? So that's super awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you made that transition, sort of, from the digital marketing, e-commerce stuff into the podcast guesting?
Well, you mentioned it. I was like 50 times on television in Buenos Aires. I'm from Austria, but I happened to be in the newspaper industry, and I was almost 13 years in working for the Hemisphere newspaper. I ended up as a channel manager there in Buenos Aires, but the business was too big. I mean, there were so many people in my office, and I got headache from it. So I had to make another master's degree. Either I meditate or get another master's degree. So I did get another master's degree, and then I went to the university and I studied and got better in Spanish and everything. But then I got lucky, and I got several invitations to television shows, and there I was really falling in love with this idea of getting interviewed. And because each time I got interviewed for 15 minutes, I talked about paradigmatic business stories like Phil Knight, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and all these people right then, I was writing an article, I got it translated into Spanish, I rehearsed in my office about it, so I could actually go there to the television show and talk kind of reasonably as an Austrian Spanish. So I was so happy about this interviews, and I got clients from it. In my what I did on the side, which was I was a consultant in profit patterns and profit models and a balanced scorecard in Buenos Aires. So I got clients from it, and that's when I did my e-commerce store in the wedding industry. I made some good money. I was in Canada at that time. The business was in America. It was good. That was the time when we have been in Stamponet. But afterwards, when the algorithm, the algorithm changed, the Panda algorithm and all this animal Panda updates, from Google, I realized Google is not my platform. It's not my website. They have control over me. And I was we were quite smart, as you know, in Stamponet with search engine optimization, internet marketing. But then we were punished suddenly, right? And the biggest person in the wedding industry from Canada, who got all this stuff in from China and had a great, wonderful, how should I say, magazine about wedding products. He called me, I was in Central America on the beach in Nicaragua. He called me, wanted to pick my brain, and there was not much intelligence on that website, from the search engine optimization point of view. And really, he now suddenly ranked number 1. That was completely irrational. And we, my friends and I from Stamponet, experts in search engine optimization were punished, and suddenly we didn't make any money anymore. So I had to switch to the thing with consulting, because I did quite well with internet marketing in general. I wasn't dependent on search engine optimization. But then I saw this opportunity coming up with helping experts to be on shows. And you see, that is something I really like, because I attracted business leadership. I attracted spirituality, because that's what I studied basically. And I also reached out to them, like on LinkedIn, and suddenly had in a very short time, sorry, I had all these incredible clients, like 3 times bestseller on the Wall Street Journal, or spirituality, like somebody who did like healing and had like this crystal ball music, and had like 200,000 people follow us on on social media platforms. And that was amazing to me, and I liked it. I liked to meet with them on Zoom meetings. I liked to represent them. I did everything from scratch. The email pitch, which was very important for positioning. I could use my university education, and the positioning is a delicate thing. You have to do it the right way, because you don't put so many shots for podcast pitching. So when you have a podcast for a client, you want to make sure that it resonates really well. Like I pitched myself to you, but it's you need to know, because you're a podcast marketing expert. You're doing all the business, helping brands and businesses to create a more attraction for clients, and to get them, to get other clients basically do the same thing like you. And that is something I can say there's a resonance, because I can say, look, you help people with the podcasts, making their own podcasts. I help them leveraging those thought leaders, businesses, CEOs, consultants, coaches. I help them leveraging other people's audiences, because I get them on tours, like 20 to 30 podcasts a year, right? And a podcast, I do only high level, elite podcasts. They're getting like from 1,000 to 5,000 plus audiences. That's I differentiate myself there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it also helps your audience who is interested in podcasts, in creating their own podcast with your help. So to have to strengthen their brand, to get more visibility. I could help them also basically in this talk now, by giving them ideas that you can also leverage your own podcast. See where the connection is? I can leverage them. They can leverage their own podcast and their business by going on other people's podcasts. And when you have your own podcast, it's easier, because they like to sometimes swap. They like to also be on the podcast of which they have. But I'm not talking about average podcasts. I'm really talking about elite podcasts. But it happens quite often for my clients. I have currently 15 current clients, and they're all like high-level clients. And usually when I pitch them, what happens is they are very interested in also sometimes being on the other person's podcast.
That's awesome. That's really cool that you discovered that, the importance of, when you get interviewed, the business can come from that, and then you develop the business out of that, and you were able to, escape the Google, because for those that don't know, like there especially back then when he's talking about with StomperNet, there was like a rug pull that could happen every now and again, where you're just on top of the world financially, and then literally the next day you're at zero and have to literally rebuild. And
yes, exactly.
That's not fun. And so that's why we've went to different avenues of that are more enjoyable, and where we can actually help people and consult with people, and it's really, really cool. And there's a lot of value that Josef offers to the world, as far as his knowledge in internet marketing, direct response marketing, and guesting, actually living it and doing it. He's not just like, oh, this is a good idea to do. He actually did it, discovered it, that it is beneficial, and then built a business out of it. So that's super, super awesome. So you deal mainly with the higher level podcasts, right?
Yeah, only because there are so many podcasts. Like you have so many. You have like the latest numbers are like 4 million, and there are only really 40,000 active. 400,000 are interview based, and 40,000 are really active. And if you go to the high level podcast, let's say I'm into business leadership, business, small business, big business, business cultural change, culture change, and motivation, but also spirituality. So these ones, there are not so many podcasts actually. It's not like YouTube channel, like YouTube. No, it's not like YouTube, but it's high level because the people in the podcast industry, they have a high net worth because they are not part of the wasteland of humanity. And I'm very saying this compassionately. They are part of people who continuously educate themselves, even when they drive their car, even when they clean the house. See, they listen to this podcast. But El, thank you very much for saying such kind things about me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And podcasting, it's I'm amazed at a lot of the guests that I have come on and how, like you said, like they continually educate and expand and recreate themselves and all these kind of stuff. They're always, just striving for excellence,
That's
and
right. That's right.
and that's my one core value. I only have one core value, and it's a commitment to excellence.
That's
So
beautiful.
so
That's beautiful.
when I see that in other people when I'm interviewing, it's
Yeah.
like it brings me like joy and happiness.
Yes.
It's really cool. And I can attest to the to guesting on an elite level versus just regular podcasts, because like anybody can get you on a regular podcast, but getting you on the elite level, that's a special skill, to even be able to communicate with those people. And I did just real quick, I went blind from glaucoma and got my vision back with cannabis oils. I'm a holistic health professional as well. And so I was a guest on a bunch of podcasts, because of that, because I'm the only one in the world that did that. And I never really got anything out of it. I was on maybe close to 100 of them, here and there I got some stuff, but then I went on a guy, he had 200,000 like subscribers or followers or whatever. And like he did lives and he had me on and there was like 6,000 to 7,000 people live. And he just had me tell my story. And that's all I did. I did a little offer at the end for his people, just impromptu, thousands of dollars that day and the next day and that next month, basically, because of him and him giving me that, that okay, that transfer of trust,
Yes.
from him to me for his clients. And it did create a lot of business for me. So I could see how your business could really help people to create more business and not have to go down that rabbit hole of SEO or even paid ads and stuff like that. You still do that stuff, but it's just part of the toolkit now, and the podcasting could be a major part, right?
Yes, El, and you said something very important here, because what is really your objective if you go to a marketing campaign? Ultimately, you have to pay for traffic. Even if you have a restaurant somewhere, maybe you have to rent. It's like always paying something. I mean, if you're internet, that. And even if you do SEO, it seems free, but you have to pay also because you need those articles written, and you need to, SEO, search engine optimization. Everything, always traffic is money. So if you're getting like traffic from some marketing channel like podcast guesting or podcasting, you have to evaluate how much work is it? What is the return of investment? What are my objectives, my marketing objectives? What are my marketing needs? So first, it's great for people who create their brand because you get like 40 minutes to talk about your business, about your unique value proposition, about your expertise, what you're passionate about. You can also weave in some compelling story. So it's really interesting entertainment. And that, by the way, is a big trend in the future. And so not just education, but entertainment as well, both in one. How do you say that word? And I don't want to even try it. But I read it in the statistics. So entertainment and education. That's what, because podcasting reaches, according to the stats, goes more to the younger people as well now. There are already 500 million people listening to podcasts. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
And
crazy
it grows,
awesome.
and it grows, and it grows. So really, I mean, the high-end podcasts, what is so different about them? First of all, you have to have a little bit more, patience, because they are many times booked. So your interview might come out like 3 months later. In the average podcasts, and you get maybe 30 listeners, or you get maybe, if you have 10%, whatever, global rank, which are the indicators, you get maybe 100. If you get a 1%, that's what I target. You get usually 5,000 listeners within the first week, right? But you can get many more. So the thing is, you have to have that patience. But also when you pitch them, there are many emails arriving at their inbox. And so you have to have a good icebreaker, a good subject line. You have to have some knowledge about email or internet marketing. And when you follow up, don't follow up just with emails, because if they didn't respond to your first email, maybe they respond to your third follow-up. But if you also make that connection at the same time on LinkedIn, then you have a chance after a few weeks to also send them a reminder about the email on the LinkedIn, right? So it's all works together, but ultimately it's a network. Now in our digital age, you have to have human connectedness. You have to be human with people, and they are looking for it. So if you make a connection, like a networking strategy with podcast hosts, that is what counts. And I'm not talking about me as an agency owner. I'm talking about everybody who even does it by himself. And everybody here on this podcast gets my free ebook, which is basically the fast track formula to high-end podcast bookings. So you can download it. I will tell you the link. It's a guestexpertsonair.com/podcast promo. That's where you can download that ebook. It's only like 40 pages, but it is my secret is in there. How to do it, how to get the podcast bookings for high-end podcasts. I mean, you can go to average podcasts and you can get 50 listeners. It's not bad. I mean, have you ever taught somewhere or had a presentation somewhere? 50 people is not bad. But you can get 5,000 and more. And it's not more difficult. It's just because many people don't even try it. And you have to be a little bit smarter with your engaging pitch. It's a pitch. It's a positioning statement. It's like you have to really get this strawberries out in front of the podcast host. So he said, yeah, I want that person. So many people from my clients, they say, yes, I want that person on my podcast, but that's it. That's what you have to get.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. And those, yeah. And doing it like in little effective sound bites that just don't run off, like basically when you're trying to pitch somebody, like little short, so you write all that for them, obviously.
I do it myself for my clients, because my clients, as I said, they're quite high level. I take also people, they don't have much social media presence. They don't have, sometimes a website is just necessary nowadays because it's like a business card as well. But you also want to have an ecosystem of profitability when people actually want to connect with you. In other words, you have had that 40-minute talk. Now, I'm talking about my website afterwards because I have a strategy session there. I have all kinds of things there, which I will connect with the audience. And that makes sense because I'm talking, and it's not just a talk. Talks you can forget it about, but you get them into your Facebook, you get them into your LinkedIn, you connect with them, and then they become clients. That's what you really want. Everybody should think like that. So you have to have the newsletter, whatever it is, and it's called ecosystem of profitability. When you go on a podcast tour, and if somebody's not like famous yet, and if I see something really unique, because if somebody has like talking about a life coach, well, how many life coaches are there? Millions. So if you if you get that life coach and he has a very unique angle, where he comes from, and he has a very unique framework. And he brings that to the table of discussion. I don't care if it is a website. The guy will have a good podcast tour with me, but if somebody, and I have that also, I was sometimes impressed. I have somebody like, she has that incredible website. She wrote those books, but it's vanilla, plain vanilla, the whole thing. It doesn't look like it. It looks like very professional. It looks like a Ferrari. But when you think about it, how can I understand that person better? There's nothing in there, So that is very difficult. I keep I wish you would become a client. I do it also. So I make her successful somehow because I find that thing which is unique and how to pitch it in a very short bio and make this successful. But sometimes they don't have an idea how boring they actually are. So that can also happen. So I can help them. Of course, nobody's boring in this world. Everybody's fascinating, but sometimes they don't know it,
Yeah, for sure. And it's a, yeah, and a lot of people, they do try like to go for the, go for the podcast or go for the Facebook ads or go for the whatever before they actually have something to sell to people online, or or a process or a funnel or whatever you want to call it online. So do you, like you said, like like having a lead magnet or a newsletter or an opportunity to book a call or something like that, and like you have all of the above probably,
Yes.
for yourself, but is there a like a minimum viable product kind of thing, like where that you suggest? Like what's your favorite, like a lead magnet or a newsletter, or what do you think?
The most important thing is this, because I have real good experience with this now for so many years now. If you have a good story, if you have a good expertise, if you have something nobody has, you just put your email on a page. They will come to you. But it's better if you have all the rest, I mean, you should have everything. You should have a newsletter. You should have, people to get in contact with you on LinkedIn, Facebook, and some lead magnet and particular strategy session. It depends on your business, right? But when your audience is interested in creating their own podcast, which is a great idea. There's no opposition between having your own podcast. I have clients, they started their own podcast. Of course, you should have your own podcast, but they also go on other people's podcasts, because you grow your own podcast and your own brand and your own business at the same time with your podcast and with being on other people's podcasts. Because think about 30 podcasts in a year. They don't cost you a lot of money. Like a podcast booking usually costs like $200, right? A good one. So now you're going on 30. You have a good agency that get you 1,000 to 5,000 listeners an interview. Not multiplied by 30 per year, you've got a lot of audience. And in that audience, if it's not spaced out, because the thing is really the small podcasts, you see, they are so hungry for clients, for guests, they take everybody. So they don't get any subscribers, because the subscribers you get only if you focus like you on podcast marketing or podcast guesting or whatever it is, but focused. You don't want like introverts. I want only introverts in business. Don't take anybody who's not an introvert. You see, that's why you attract those subscribers, and that's how you grow. And you grow by not just one episode a week. I learned this from pattern recognition. I see so many every day. I see this podcast, right? I ask myself, not anymore consciously, it's just there. Why is that one so successful? Well, usually they have one podcast. They interview once a week, and then they have a solo show another time that week. So you have 2 episodes. That catapults them right away up to the sky. Just 2 episodes. Sometimes people have like every day an episode. That's also possible. That also gets them a 0.5% global rank. That is just like search engine optimization in StompNet. You can understand the algorithm. It's not like you want to do something bad about it. We didn't want to trick Google at that time. We just wanted to understand the algorithm, and we were smart enough to do it. But then we got, we realized that Google is a different company. It's not, we have no control over it. And then we were suddenly on the second page and third page. That's a long time ago. So now you have your own website and you do your own thing. It's so much independent because your own podcast, nobody can disturb it there anymore. Nobody can take this away from you anymore. It's
Yeah.
there. As long as you pay your fee every month, like 10, $20.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons why podcasting is becoming more and more popular so quickly is because of that, because it's something that you own, and like there's platforms and stuff, but you can put it on your own website. You could even have subscriptions to it. You could monetize it. There's all kinds of different things you could do, and there's so many people getting deplatformed, everywhere, and for silly things, I've always in holistic health, I've always been deplatformed, since the beginning. It's always been hard to get credit card processed, and it's always, you can't make claims, you can't do this, FDA, FTC. So I'm used to it, but many people, that I know get deplatformed everywhere. So the podcast is super attractive to them, right? So do you use I mean, you mentioned it a little earlier, but how do you use social media to help boost the traffic to
Well, that's a very good question. Very good question. Because, in our world, sorry, just got something in my lung from the coffee. In our world, this world we live in, a lot of things are myths, a lot of things are perceptions. They're not necessarily reality. And when you have like little snippets of your interview, and you can do this with AI. I apologize. You can do this with AI very easily. There are some I use some platforms out there where you get the URL from that YouTube video of your podcast interview, which was 40 minutes, and it creates high quality. I'm sorry, high quality. It creates like 20 little clips, highlights. AI knows what is the best when you talk really well about something. So now you have a content marketing strategy on social media. In other words, the perception now when you post those videos, or when your team posts those videos from your company with your CEO, the CEO talking about the services, and you just had 1 or 2 or 3 episodes where you were interviewed, but you have now like a content for a whole year, right? And from time to time, you have your articles, and then you have like this minute clip, very aesthetically, nicely formatted with AI. $30 a month nowadays, and you post it on LinkedIn, you post it on Facebook and Instagram, whatever. Then you know what happens. This is what I refer to now about myth and about perception. The myth is that people think that you have been invited. They looked for you, those podcast hosts. But almost nobody gets invited unless they are pitched to by somebody, or they do it themselves. And now the perception is, now you are so famous, you are the go-to expert, you're the authority, because there's all the time there's a mini clip where you talk about your expertise from a different angle. I mean, I talk about podcast booking and about podcast casting, but each time I'm in front of somebody intelligent like you, who ask me pointed questions, I'm going to answer it from a different angle. And you know what? These clips are different again for my audience or for my wider audience. So don't estimate those things. And you can put those clips on your website, and they lead to the whole episode, of course. But social media, they are not necessarily podcast listeners. So when they see that clip, they don't even might listen to it, but they know, wow, El Morentin was again on a high-level podcast. So he talks about what? About podcasting success, helps brands, interviews CEOs, interviews experts for this same audience, basically. You get that referral. It's like you are in the Rotary Club, invited in New York City, the main one, of course, and that Rotary Club president says, hey, El, come forward, give a little speech, and he introduces you. You know what that means, right? That's all what it is all about, it's perception, in a sense. but you don't get it easily. And in the search engine optimization, it was when the link said it, right? When the link said it all the time from different websites about you, then Google knew what this is really, that website has to be on top. And now, still, when you have a podcast and you're on many podcasts as a guest, and they link to your podcast and they link to your website, it gives you that extra juice for your website, because you have to have a good variety, as we have learned in Stompernet. You have to have those directories, you have to have those websites, high-level blog posts in the context where you mentioned, but the podcasts themselves and the listen notes, your website, if you have an interview, right, are also mentioned. And that is also very important, because when you're mentioned on high-level, high-end podcasts with the link that you're, let's say that sugar expert who makes you free of sugar, you don't need sugar anymore forever, but that it goes to your website, the website goes up in ranking.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah. And it's super awesome. That's why one of the reasons why I love podcasting so much is because of all the like auxiliary assets that you can create just from one podcast, right?
Yes.
And it touches all of those things that you just mentioned. Like the actual podcast, then a YouTube video, and then going out to all the different socials, and then a newsletter and a blog post, and it can be whether you're a guest or you're a host. You could have all of those assets, and that doesn't even include the 10 to 20 reels that you could have, like little shorts or whatever, little video shorts like you were explaining earlier. And so there's so many assets. And that's why you only need one, maybe two a week, but one episode a week, you're blasting out all these other assets along with it, and then getting all those backlinks from the other sites, and it's crazy.
You're all over Google. Yeah. I mean, when people look at your website or at your name or your business, most likely, if you have been on good website, on good podcast, there are already 3 videos there on top of everything. But it's like when I research podcasts, I see many times also there's a podcast has no global rank, no listen score, it's nowhere. But then I look at the host and I see he has like maybe 30,000 followers on YouTube, and all the episodes are posted on YouTube, and it's a new podcast. See, that also can happen. So you have to, and you don't have to do it. So I would, because I want to take away for your audience, I would strongly suggest look into this when you are really interested in having your own podcast, right? Look into also, and you can do this yourself with a good marketing team, and you can buy books and make courses, or you can go to an agency. It costs about $200 for a good interview, but get also on interviews at the same time. Why? Because you will bring a lot more growth to your own podcast by doing that. And right away, you will have the benefits, because there's a difference between growing your own audience with 300, 400 episodes during several years. But you can get good rankings already after a few months if you do it the right way.
Yeah, for sure.
And you teach that. But yes, you can also at the same time have your own podcast and be on other people's podcast, leveraging their audiences. Make it always relevant to your own wider audience, because if you talk to an audience who is not really interested in your topic, you will not like it. They will not like it. It's very easy, right?
Yeah.
I'm a philosopher. I love philosophy. I like Oriental philosophy. But you know how many people are really interested in that stuff? Very few. When I meet somebody in a restaurant, in a bar, or in a coffee shop, whatever, or in my small village in Mallorca, which is a mountain village, but there are foreigners like from Germany, from everywhere. But when I meet somebody and they're interested, I sense it, I feel it, and then we have a wonderful conversation. When usually like 95% are not interested in the topic, I'm not going to talk about it. Yeah. I talk about other things, about the good food and about whatever interests them also, right? So the same thing with podcasts, and that's super important as well, that you always have a real resonance. So use AI, use ChatGPT, get used to it, analyze it, you get the information right away from the podcast, and then you give in your website and say, familiarize yourself with myself, familiarize yourself with the podcast, and you know what, say, am I relevant? What is the really resonance with the audience? I did it because before I came to you. So I can have, like, I can say, you know, that I can offer some takeaway. That was the takeaway.
Right on. Yeah, that's awesome. And thank you for that. That's super valuable, you know, information for sure, you know, and yeah, it's a, you know, it's a thoughtful process, right? You know, and you know, and if you like strategize it correctly, then you could use that to scale your business and have fun doing it, you know. But like you said, the like having the right audience, like that, not just being on a top podcast, but being on one that resonates with you and your message. That's everything. Because I've been on, you know, ones before myself, you know, that where the audience didn't really resonate, and you know, it's you're just sort of trying to rush to get off the thing, you know. But then when there's people, especially if you're doing lives, stuff like that, and people are commenting back and they resonate with you or whatever, and all this kind of stuff, it's almost like a dream. You don't want to get off the show. You just want to share your knowledge.
Like we know, you know, we
Yeah.
resonate completely, you know.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, you can look at other guests on the podcast. Like on your podcast, they're excellent guests. I know this is a podcast, staying power. It's going to be more important over time. So that one you can also do. I have about 12 indicators basically. But as I said, also everybody can always come to my website and make a strategy session with me. It's free.
Right on. Yeah, and we'll be sure to put all your links and everything, and for the lead magnet that you had mentioned about like how to approach the podcast and stuff like that. You know, we'll be sure to put all those links for sure. Yeah, so let me look over here, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. All
I don't
right.
even capture email on it because I had this ebook. I just like to give it away. Because you see, the thing is, my clients, they don't want to do it themselves. But if because they don't, you know, they make a lot of money with their clients. They don't want to learn. It's a learning curve, right? But if somebody wants to learn it, I give it to them. So it's a guestexpertsonair.com/podcast promo, and you can download that book. It's only 30 pages. It's really well written. It's very aesthetically written. And when you read it, you'll get the secret. My secret from my agency, how I do this. I give it away. So you can do it yourself. You can try it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it only makes sense, right? You know, you like as a person that's given out to the world, you know, not just a business person, but you like to put out, you know, good energy in the world, basically, you know, and so you want everybody to have the knowledge, and the people that I call it, you know, MTTM and MMTT, more time than money and more money than time. So the people that have more time than money, they'll try to do it on their own. The people that have more money than time, they'll go to you. You know, like the same thing with me. Like the people that want to start a podcast, like CEOs and all those kind of people, that they have more money than time, so they'll hire, and they see the value, and then there's speed to implementation too when you hire somebody, right?
That's very well said. I didn't know that. That was a good thing. What you just said, interesting. Yeah, I knew it, but I never knew there was like you said it now. It was very well said.
Right on. Awesome. So you shared a lot of like really awesome information, and then thank you for sharing that that ebook as well. You know, I'm sure it has a ton of valuable information, you know, on how to approach the podcast hosts and stuff like that. Is there one big idea or that you should take away from this show? I know you already shared a couple, but is there one key takeaway that
Let me think about one quote. As you know, I was teaching in three universities, and I was on 50 television shows. But there's one person, and I went a lot to conferences, like management conferences and stuff like this. And I struggled myself as a manager because, you know, it was anyway. But there is one interesting quote, and it's from Peter Drucker. And Peter Drucker was Austrian, but every manager knows him. He was like writing all these great books on management and stuff, like big companies or companies, CEOs. That's the audience.
Mhm.
He says, and you can maybe appreciate that quote. And it's not from me, of course, it's from him. And it's innovation. And that has to do with what we just talked about, like new marketing, like the podcast, having your own podcast for your company, for the marketing, for getting the word out, for getting people attracted to your brand, like what you teach, right? Innovation and marketing are the only departments, so to speak, in your business. Think about that. They are not costs. They are actual investments. Everything else is a cost. Your accountant will not agree to it, but he's a very important person in your company, but he's a cost. You see, every department in your business is a cost. But if you do it the right way, podcasting and podcast guesting will be a big investment. And the most important thing he says also, basically, he didn't say it about podcasting because he said already, but it's like a long time ago. But I just was paraphrasing and explaining a little bit the quote. But ultimately, you want to know that everything is about your customer. So many times you see like somebody does a new business, but he's not really focused on the first customer. Like when you have your first customer, you sold your first book, you got your first dollar on the internet. That is a time to celebrate because that is the goal. Then $1 becomes $10,000, $100,000, $1 million. And this is exactly what this Peter Drucker talked about. Marketing and innovation. Always think about it. It's very important that you don't see it as a cost because many people they shrink down their business because they say when they cut costs, they do it. The first thing they do is no more about this marketing thing or innovation thing. But you can waste a lot of money on it, but if you do it the right way, it will make your business grow.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing the insights. Yeah, innovation and marketing, their investments, everything else is a cost
Yes.
in your business. That's awesome.
And the purpose is to create a business, to create a customer, not anything else. To create a customer.
Yeah, create and retain, right?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. So thank you for coming on the show, sharing all your insights with us. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you or follow you?
Yeah, it's that website, and just go and get that book, which I offer for free. But it's like, maybe you can repeat it because I have this Austrian accent, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger accent. But it's www.guestexpertsonair.com. That's the website. And if it's the same URL, the same address, and you / podcast promo, you get the free ebook, but you're also on the website. So you can click on the home and you can go to the strategy session and you can do all kinds of things there because I think it's valuable educational website for everything related to podcast guesting and podcast booking, not about your expertise, not how to create a podcast.
That's awesome. So yeah, guestexpertsonair.com/podcast promo. And we'll be sure to put the, in the show notes for the audio and the video for sure as well.
Download the book. Yeah. You like it.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on the show.
Hale, thank you. I knew it from the beginning. It would be a nice conversation.
Awesome. So that concludes this episode of Podcast Marketing Secrets. This is Al Morenton signing off. I hope you have a successful day.